It's a Northwest Lifestyle Weekend on Como News. IRG's Health Talk continues.
All right, our first guest today is Ken Gordon, Executive Director at Northwest Association for Biomedical Research. And of course, with the coronavirus vaccines that a lot of us are waiting for, they're doing research at NWABR. And Ken is working to promote the public's trust in biomedical research. And Shannon, anxious to talk to him because obviously everybody's interested in a vaccine for this coronavirus.
Oh, it's on everybody's mind right now. And can you imagine the thousands and thousands of researchers and scientists are out there working, and Ken functions as a liaison from that research platform to the public platform.
Yeah, I'm anxious to hear what he has to say. Let's hear what Ken Gordon has to say. Again, he is Executive Director at Northwest Association for Biomedical Research. Let's listen to Ken Gordon and Shannon O'Kelley.
Ken, welcome to Health Talk. Tell our listeners about what you do. What's the day in the life for Dr. Ken Gordon?
So firstly, I'm not a doctor, I'm a human being.
Okay, so that's awesome.
So I'm the Executive Director of the Northwest Association for Biomedical Research. NWABR, which is our short name, we work with all the biomedical research associations in the Northwest, and our job is to promote the work that they do to the public, to make sure the public trusts the work and make sure that when the work is done, it's done ethically correctly.
I like it. Your listeners can't help but hear an accent here. Tell us about your training, your background, how you became involved in this research, your education, and then a little bit of you came across the pond, so to speak, all the way up here to the Northwest, and then we'll dig down into what you actually do. I want to find out a little about Dr. Ken Gordon.
So I'm a non-profit specialist and have been for my entire life. I've got a business degree in non-profit financial management. I've got a public policy degree. And I worked for, the job I came to America following was running a foundation in New Zealand. And because of that foundation, I got a fellowship to go to Stanford. And I met someone and we struck up a friendship, and within 3 months we were married, and she lived in Seattle. So I quit my job in the huge foundation and I moved to America. And when I first came here, I worked with Native American communities for 5 years, trying to establish philanthropy in the Northwest. And I was asked to take on the job at NWABR, not because of any biomedical background, but because of my nonprofit finance background.
And what is that job at NWABR, Northwest Association Biomedical Research? So
we run a bunch of conferences every year. So if you're doing research on stuff or with animals or with human subjects, what we want to do is make sure that you're doing it legally correctly and ethically correctly. And so we do a lot of focus on that. And because we know that if you're researching legally and ethically correctly, then we can leverage that to build public trust in the work that you're doing. And what we know is at the moment in America, there's kind of this huge anti-science movement. And we have to get ahead of that because, we're here to talk about maybe COVID today. If we get a vaccine for COVID and the anti-vaxxers and the anti-science movement stop people having those vaccinations, then we're not going to get out of this virus.
Yeah, but what is, in your opinion, what is the genesis behind anti-science and anti-vaccine? We're talking about COVID. It's changed the world. It's the new norm. Your country's done really well with it, by the way, but not everybody. And it's created a lot of anxiety. The new norm for us, even in the physical therapy world, healthcare has changed significantly. I'm excited about a vaccination because I want to go back to what was, and I don't know if that's a possibility going forward. This virus is going to be around.
So I totally respect people who are nervous about vaccines. I'm nervous about vaccines. I think the problem isn't what they think. I think the problem is on our side that we haven't been communicating enough about science. And I think if I was to characterize my job, I'm both an advocate for science, but also I'm a translator for science. Because scientists sometimes are not the best communicators. And so my job is to take these things and break it down and bring it to the public in a way that's accessible. And so we can have a discussion. And I'm not going to change anyone's mind about whether they should have vaccines or not. But what I want to do is have a discussion with them so I can understand why they don't like it. And I can also share why I think vaccines are so important.
And your job is to liaison from the research laboratory, it sounds like, to the public and get that information out. And your experience, probably firsthand, these laboratories and the research, it's fascinating. The stuff they're doing today and just biologics, right? Just what they're doing with medicine to help with arthritis. These autoimmune, some of the stuff that's going on right here in the Pacific Northwest is huge.
I have never been more proud about biomedical research. Scientists in our region have just worked their butt off to respond to the coronavirus and COVID-19. I think that in the country there are more than 1,000 clinical trials at the moment trying to figure out how to solve this disease.
Back with more with Ken Gordon and Shannon O'Kelley next on KOMO.
It's a Northwest Lifestyle Weekend on KOMO News. Now back to IRG's Health Talk.
We continue our conversation with Ken Gordon, Shannon O'Kelley, talking about coronavirus vaccine research.
Ken, right before we went to break, you were talking about 1,000 trials of vaccination. Now, tell us about that. What's actually going on there?
So the trials are looking at everything, and these are human trials. How do you get the disease? Why do some people get sick and some people don't? Once you're sick, what's a good treatment for you? Like the whole debate about hydroxychloroquine, and then also moving into the vaccine trials. At Oregon Health and Science University, which is one of our institutions, and also the University of Washington, there are also hundreds of other trials going on with mice and rats and monkeys to try and figure out what's going on with this disease and how we can understand it better and what good treatments exist. And so every aspect of this disease has been dissected by scientists across the country and the world to try and find good diagnostics, good treatments, and good vaccines.
I think the general public is just me personally and the general public probably just want to know, give us the facts. And I think, why does it take so long? I mean, just recently in the paper, Russia is talking about a vaccination. They're launching, 30 billion doses or whatever, 30 million. Why does it take so long?
So in America, we're about to move into phase 3 trials for some of the vaccine candidates. Phase 3 trials will test this vaccine with 30 to 40,000 people, and you either get the vaccine or you get a placebo. And the idea is that you then go out in the world, and after a couple of months, if we see the people with vaccines aren't getting sick and the people with the placebos are, we know the vaccine's probably a good candidate. But we need to know that to make sure it's safe. I don't think any ethical researcher would advocate giving 7 billion vaccines to people without going through this process, because you just don't know what that drug might do to you, and you don't know what the side effects could be. We don't want to kill 7 billion people just because you're rushing to get a vaccine that might save a few 100,000.
And how long does the phase 3 trial typically take?
But it takes several months to analyze that data and to see what's happening. The one thing we can do, and this is a big ethical discussion in our community at the moment, is can we do challenge trials? So you take a healthy person, you give them the vaccine, you give it a month to settle in, and then you deliberately expose them to coronavirus. And the challenge of healthy trials is if the vaccine's 100% effective, great, they'll be safe. But if it's not and they get COVID-19, we still don't have a good treatment for COVID-19. So that's a really risky challenge trial.
Do you have to take it through these challenge trials?
You have to take it through the phase 3 trials and prove that it's effective and safe, and we don't know that. And this is where a lot of the work, particularly with monkeys, is important, because monkeys are very similar to us.
Right.
And so we can do the challenge trials with monkeys and see what's going on for them. With monkeys, if we vaccinate them, can we prove then after a month or so that they are actually protected from COVID-19?
Boy, we're running out of time here, but as we wrap up, just to summarize, we're on a good trajectory. We've got a lot of smart people working in a safe environment, ethical environment, and you see a bright future. I take it just by hearing your voice, you're very positive.
We are going to get our arms around this and get a solution to this problem. What I want to do is acknowledge all the millions of researchers who are working their butts off at the moment, because it's like the first responders. They're the people who will help us come back to some kind of normalcy.
Well, thank you so much for your information. Hey, do me a favor. Would you come back like once a month and just update us? I'd like to do that during this process. We all need, you make me feel good about what's going on. Thank you, Ken.
Happy to do that. Thank you.
All right, you've been listening to Ken Gordon, who is the executive director at Northwest Association for Biomedical Research. And Shannon, this is, of course, very important work they're doing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the whole world is dependent on a vaccine so we can get back to normal. And again, Tom, what is going to be our new norm in the future? Do we know? Probably not, but certainly excited about a vaccine.
All right, our next guest is coming up in just a moment. Stay with us right here on KOMO.